the biggest surprise was in person. He's solicitous. He tries to play the host. He was wanted. Look, this is no great insight into the psychology of someone we've all been studying for over a decade, but he wants people to like him. I showed him the Arnault cover, and he wanted to know if Arnault had said anything about him, if he was on his side, so to speak. And of course, I told him that I'd written 2 books about Amazon and Jeff Bezos, and he wanted to know.
That must have gone well.
Yeah, well, no. In the interview, of course, he rails against the Washington Post. As I was chatting with him afterwards, he wanted to know if Lauren Sanchez, Bezos' fiance, was a Trump fan. So that might tell you a little bit more about he's calculating who's on his team and who's not.
Right. Brad, what did you learn about what the president may envision if he were to get a second term?
Right. And back to Tom's first question, our lane is business and the economy. And so we went down there with a very specific mission to ask him about Trumponomics, what it meant, what his plans were beyond, some of the very broad strokes that have allowed proxies to come in with things like Project 2025 or a white paper saying that he would curb the independence of the Federal Reserve. And in some respects, he corrected the record. He said Jerome Powell that he'd let him serve out his full term to May 2026 as chairman. He kind of caveated that if I liked what he's doing. He said that he could consider Jamie Dimon for Treasury Secretary. And then in terms of the broad strokes, it's an unorthodox economic plan because he's attacking inflation, but then he talks about 10% tariffs across the board, maybe 100% tariffs for China, lowering the corporate tax rate. He said even maybe to 15%. He likes big round numbers, shutting down immigration at the border, which would, of course, tighten an already tight labor market and maybe raise wages and then potentially raise prices. So, there's some contradiction there.
Let me go back to James Dimon. Brad, your take here, and of course, with your world-class ownership of the Amazon story, I've sat 7 feet behind Donald Trump as he spoke to the business elite of Wall Street at the Economic Club of New York. You're telling me Secretary Dimon is going to listen to Donald Trump? Help me with that.
Well, it's funny because one of the things that he did say when we said, what would be different this time around with the suggestion that, he sort of, killed himself with his own chaos and, unpredictability the last time around. And his big revelation was, well, this time I know everyone. I'm more experienced. And he even said that, he made some mistakes last time, that he selected some people. And of course, now we know who they are, leading right up to the former vice president who ultimately were not with him. So he'd surround him with sycophants. So I do think it's a good, this is what he said, that Jamie Dimon, he'd wanted him in his administration, or Glenn Youngkin. But right, it's a great question. Why would they do that, considering where so many of those cabinet members ended up the last time around?